超弦理论的盲点
A blind spot in Superstring Theorisifing October 24, 2005. Translated by Transin and edited by Kayer. If we consider the quantum field theory as one leg in a pair of pants and the general relativity theory as the other leg, then the superstring theory would be the waist part trying to connect them. Einstein's general relativity mainly discusses gravity and holds that it does not exist but is the result of the curvature of space. It assumes that space itself is smooth and flat, but when celestial bodies of great mass such as the Sun appear, they cause it to curve inward. It is like pressing hard on a girl's round and smooth face with an index finger, which breaks the smoothness and forms an indentation. The geometric deformation of space gives rise to apparent gravity, which defines it from a macro perspective. With regard to a person or a stone, its mass is too small to deform space any noticeable amount, thus microscopic matter has almost no apparent gravity. The problem with microcosmic matter is that its space is not smooth and flat, but is filled with countless flying particles which are unable to curve space to produce gravity as huge masses do. The movements of microparticles have nothing to do with gravity. They are the results of electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. Quantum mechanics appeared when general relativity failed to explain the source of these three forces. Quantum mechanics studies fundamental particles at the microcosmic level. Whether large celestial bodies or grains of sand on the beach, all matter is made of hundreds of types of fundamental particles with masses close to zero but whose trajectories change unpredictably with no rules to follow but are always in motion. Motion is not caused by gravity, but by the three aforementioned forces of nature being converted from the particles. Electromagnetism is converted from photons, the strong force is converted from gluons, and the weak force is converted from bosons. However, the conversion of particles cannot generate gravity. Therefore, the quantum mechanics does not explain gravity. The macroscopic world and the microscopic world are unified integral, but general relativity theory, which can explain motion at the macroscopic level, and quantum mechanics, which can explain it at the microscopic level, are not fully compatible. An overall description of the universe can only be had by combining these two seemingly contradictory theories, and this mosaic theory is called the superstring theory. This superstring theory believes that matter is made of molecules, molecules are made of atoms, atoms are made of electron shells and nuclei, and the nuclei consist of protons and neutrons, which are made of quarks. What are quarks and electrons made of? Scientists believe that both are fundamental point particles which have no internal structures and cannot be divided any further. Superstring argues that these particles do not really exist, but are only strings in motion in space, and a variety of different types of particles are formed by these strings vibrating differently. All interactions between matter and energy can be explained by combining and separating strings, but strings do not move in normal three-dimensional space. Rather, they move in a high dimension of space which is beyond our imagination. Our traditional ideas about space are wrong because space has more than 3 dimensions, maybe 10 or even 26 of them. If this sounds confusing, consider the following scenario. An ant crawls into a shallow pit. It climbs out and goes further until it falls into a deeper pit. It climbs out and continues to go until after some time, it drops into a sand pit. It climbs out, but eventually lands inside a mud pit. These 4 pits are totally irrelevant to the ant, which simply comes across them by chance. Living on a 2-dimensional plane, it cannot see the interrelation of the 4 pits, let alone know that they may be related integrally. What is the reality of the situation? These 4 pits are footprints left by an elephant as it ate. 1 foot stood on hard ground, another stood on soft ground, a third in sand, and the 4th was in a pond of rainwater. So there are the shallow pit, the deep pit, the sand pit, and the mud pit. That is to say, the seemingly unrelated pits are actually integral parts of a whole. It is only when we think beyond our 2-dimensional plane to include 3-dimensional height, 4-dimensional time, 5-dimensional retention information, and 6-dimensional space movement and so on, that we begin to understand how these unrelated pits are integral parts left by a single elephant. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong force, and the weak force are our 4 pits, but they are actually parts of a whole. Superstring theory was conceived to explain their integration. Superstring is the most promising theory to unify our understanding of fundamental particles with the interactions of the four forces. Superstring holds that strings are the most basic units of matter, and that all fundamental particles such as electrons, photons, neutrinos, and quarks are different vibrational states of energy strings. Superstring combines the two major basic theories of the 20th century, general relativity and quantum mechanics, for the first time into a mathematically self-consistent framework. Superstring has the potential to solve long-standing problems that have troubled physicists, including the nature of black holes and the origin of the universe. If experimentation confirms it, then our understanding of the structure of matter, space, and time would change fundamentally. The prospect is tempting and theoreticians are struggling with it, but it seems ridiculous and childish to me because of some major blind spots they are. 1. How have these strings come into being? 2. How do they move? 3. Could they represent the origin of the universe? How can a unified field theory of the universe be established when the origin of the universe is still unknown? Only Life Genuine can answer these questions.
广义相对论的启示
Revelations from General Relativity. Jiefeng. September 1, 2005. Translated by Transin and edited by Kayer. The attraction between the Earth and the tested body has gravitational mass. Exerting force to a body, the body will produce reaction force. It resists acceleration, so the body has inertial mass. The gravitational mass and inertial mass of the same body tested in a variety of ways arrive at such a conclusion. Gravitational mass equals inertial mass. Isaac Newton believed that the measurement result of equivalence of the mass is only coincidental, but Albert Einstein found that such equivalence exists in a glorious channel that replaced Newton's theory. Galileo Galilei noted the phenomenon in his experiment that the acceleration of a body in a gravitational field is independent of its mass. In gravitational fields, bodies of different masses fall at identical speeds. The acceleration of two bodies toward each other in the same gravitational field are always equal. For example, if we were to remove all air resistance, then anything falling toward the Earth would accelerate at a constant rate of 9.8 meters per second squared. In order to explain the principle of the equivalence of gravitational mass and inertial mass, Einstein came up with his famous third hypothesis, general relativity. If an inertial system is equal to a gravitational system which is evenly accelerated, then we can introduce a uniform gravitational field into it and assume that it, the inertial system, will remain static. On the basis of this third hypothesis, Einstein deduced his fourth one, which is also the same in all systems. Any observer inside an accelerated running elevator will perceive a spot of light that is shining through its window at a constant speed along a level line into the elevator that lands on its opposite wall differently than an observer who is outside the same elevator. Einstein's fourth hypothesis confirms that observers inside the elevator err by neglecting the mass of energy because it is very small. However, slight changes of movements of energy can be observed near very strong gravitational fields. It has been shown that light which is close enough to the sun will be drawn toward it due to its huge mass. Thus, Einstein reached a surprising conclusion. The world in which we live is not Euclidean. That is, circles in Euclidean geometry are no longer round, parallel lines intersect or diverge, and the sums of the angles of triangles are not 180 degrees. This strange conclusion is called the geometry of the universe. 1 plus 1 cannot always equal 2. What is the speed of a photon plus the speed of a moving train? Can there be such a speed in reality? Place one atomic clock atop a mountain, and another one of similar performance at the foot of the same mountain, and their measured times will gradually diverge. The one on the top of mountain will run slightly more slowly than the one at its foot. Why? Because gravitational fields alter time and space. What are the revelations of general relativity to us? 1. Any conclusion about macrospace and time from the perception of microspace and time might be inaccurate. 2. Any conclusion drawn from within a system can be inconsistent with one drawn from outside of it. 3. There are natural laws in the universe which apply everywhere and always. 4. There are differences between abstract theories and reality. 5. Space and time are not absolute. What kind of worldview and outlook on life can we draw from these revelations? 1. We may have been living mistakenly. That which is in our consciousness is not truth, but distorted reality. 2. Absolutely correct doctrines, theories, and ideas from within any religious, social, or governmental system may ultimately be disproved. 3. There are irrefutable universal laws which apply to all space and time. These laws are collectively the will of the greatest creator, Tao. 4. No theory is absolute and eternally true. We should never believe blindly in the classical theories, but should think from the perspective of holographic order. 5. Returning from old age to youth and advancing from youth to old age, as well as living in different spaces, is possible. No one has yet discovered all the secrets of the universe. On the contrary, we are only beginning to explore its wonders, and what we do know only scratches the surface. We are still ignorant of the meanings of time and space, so any strong opposition to new ideas, innovative approaches, and new philosophical perspectives is reactionary to the universe and to life, and is a suppression of human nature. Only the concept of unifying all religions into a single uniform one is relatively correct thinking. Only the way of the greatest creator is the universal natural law, to bring salvation from human suffering at the macro level.
前往天堂的24个硬性指标。
24 mandatory indices to heaven. Xiefeng, November 18, 2018. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. The universe is not only rational but also mathematical. Whatever does not conform to scientific principles is a fantasy, a dream. Assumptions do not confirm scientific principles because only facts and tested theories are their cores. Everything that really exists conforms to scientific principles. Everything that can be deduced logically also conforms to scientific principles, even if we cannot see that they exist. Does heaven exist or does it not? This is quite simple, for as long as we can see the reality of heaven or as long as its existence can be deduced logically, then we can conclude that it does. No one's description of heaven is convincing unless many people have witnessed it for themselves and can confirm it repeatedly. The 1,000-year world of heaven that I have described would not be convincing if it were only my personal description, but when I copied it onto the earth and hundreds of people not only saw it but also lived in it and experienced it, then it became time to accept its existence. Though seemed humble, it is the 1,000-year world of heaven's earthly manifestation. If you still cannot recognize these facts in front of you, then you are only proving that you are disregarding them and preferring to stay with your comfortable dreams and illusions. Everyone knows about the plane rectangular coordinate system, which has 4 quadrants and each quadrant expresses a different nature. For example, if the first quadrant is all positive and the third one is all negative, then the first quadrant can represent heaven and the third one can represent hell. The space in which life exists is not a plane rectangular coordinate system though, but a 3-dimensional cubic coordinate system with volume, also called a complex rectangular coordinate system because it has horizontal spacetime, and this horizontal spacetime is invisible to people within 3-dimensional space. Although people cannot see it, it can still be deduced in a scientific way. That is, by the imaginary number axis, which is perpendicular to both our eyes and also to the x and y axis, through the plane rectangular coordinate system origin. Think of it like a chopstick that is perpendicular to our eyes and we can only see a point, though a point is clearly not its true nature. Because a virtual axis is added to the plane Cartesian coordinate system, that plane Cartesian coordinate system has become a 3-dimensional one in which there are 20 quadrants. We human beings live in only one of them. The other 19 are spaces that humans do not experience or understand thoroughly as of yet, and heaven is among them. This is the scientific principle of heaven. Since heaven exists and life is so beautiful there, then of course we are all eager to go there. The question is, how do we get there? No matter who you are, a religious follower or an atheist, rich or poor, an official or a common citizen, a university professor or an illiterate, you can go to heaven by reaching its standard, but if you are substandard, then you will have to recycle through the samsara of the mortal world, the animal world, or even the livestock world. Here are the 24 mandatory requirement indices. 1. Freedom from debts. 2. Accumulation of merits and virtues. 3. Freedom from worldly ties. 4. Freedom from troubles and annoyances. 5. Freedom from anxiety. 6. Freedom from grief. 7. Freedom from worries. 8. Freedom from fears. 9. Possession of nothing. 10. Having a carefree mind. 11. Neither complaining nor resenting. 12. Distance from anger and loss of temper. 13. Lack of envy for others. 14. Lack of negativity and pessimism. 15. Never comparing oneself to others. 16. Never regarding oneself as correct. 17. Never arguing with or contending with others. 18. Keeping a peaceful and joyous mind. 19. Having a fondness for playing. 20. Having no special relationship with anyone. 21. Sharing everything with others. 22. Having upbringing, self-cultivation, and self-restraint. 23. Lacking a mind but showing a nature. 24. Freedom from ego. No matter who you are, as long as you meet these 24 requirements listed above, then you have reached the standard and you will undoubtedly go to heaven. There is no need for ascetic practices, meditation, praying in churches and temples, understanding the classics, taking someone as your master, burning joss sticks, or even kowtowing and worshipping. On the other hand, if you do not meet the standards, even if you have read all the classics wholeheartedly, have self-cultivated and self-improved for thousands of years, are wealthy in knowledge, are a supermaster, have been preaching all your life and have thousands of followers, are eloquent enough to fully understand the classics, and no matter how much you have contributed to the world, then please accept my apology because you are not and will not be heaven-bound. It is easy to see that heaven is an ideal society, but why is it so ideal? The reason is that every life can enjoy its pleasure fully. If one who was unable to meet the standard were to enter heaven, then how could the others be guaranteed the freedom to enjoy their pleasure of life fully? That would be impossible. Heaven does exist and the road to it is clear. Go there or do not, the decision is yours.
一团有关性的迷雾。
A Cloud of Fog about Nature, Siefeng, November 18, 2019, translated by Qin Yu and edited by Kair. The universe is a stage for nature and everything and all phenomena are nature's dances. The true essence of Buddhism is, an enlightened heart is perceptive to nature, perceptive to Buddha. The main theme of the Bloodstream sermon by Master Bodhidharma was that nature, same word as sex in Chinese, is Buddha and Buddha is nature. Without the perception of nature, all teachings of Dharma are demonic talks, and all practicing of magic is demonic conduct. The sixth patriarch Huineng's The Platform Sutra says, "Who would know that our nature, essence of mind, Tathagata suchness, is intrinsically pure? Who would have thought that our nature is intrinsically free from becoming or annihilating? Who would have thought that our nature is intrinsically self-sufficient? Who would have thought that our nature is intrinsically free from change? Who would have thought that all things are manifestations of our nature?" From this point of view, we should follow our nature. If so, willfulness is right, and the wayward person is dictated by willful nature, but reality tells us that willful people cannot become immortal or Buddha. To follow one's nature, but not be willful is a contradiction. This is the fog about nature. Let's take Jiaoyi, Lexian, and Tianxin as examples to analyze willfulness. Jiaoyi is weak-willed, Lexian is medium-willed, and Tianxin is strong-willed. Weak-willed people have their own cognition and ideas about everything, And they always include contradictions and conflicts with Tao. They always want things to develop according to their own wishes, but because they have awe in their hearts, they are still willing to yield even when they are unhappy. Therefore, they can still walk on the way of Tao. Medium-willed people know that they are wrong, but they have strong self-esteem and easily drift between Tao and the mortal trail. If their self-esteem is well protected, they can merge into Tao. If their self-esteem is damaged, they will deviate from the Tao and move toward the trail. Strong-willed people are desperate to act according to their own wishes. Although they might know that they are wrong, their emotions exceed their rationality and they are unwilling to comply with Tao, let alone succumb to it. Wayward people have generally been spoiled since they were young and have experienced too little frustration in their lives. How does one escape from this nature fog? All speech and behaviors are caused by the trends of nature, and nature is the strongest driving force. Let us observe everything in nature: the loftiness and erecting of mountains, the fickleness and flowing of water, the birth and growth of plants in spring and summer, the fighting and killing of animals, and the fighting and robbing in the human world. All are the deductions of nature. From this point of view, following one's nature and willfulness are both not only problematic, but also dangerous, just like wolves, insects, tigers, and leopards following their natures, and kudo, vine, vitex, and thorns that are willful. From this, the sixth patriarch Huanings, who would know that our nature, essence of mind, tathagata suchness, is intrinsically pure, who would have thought that our nature is intrinsically free from becoming or annihilating, who would have thought that our nature is intrinsically self-sufficient, who would have thought that our nature is intrinsically free from change, who would have thought that all things are the manifestation of our nature, are also problematic. The self-nature is not pure. It has birth and annihilation and it cannot produce everything. Follow one's nature. But what kind of nature? The nature of a devil or that of Buddha? The nature of beasts or that of humanity? Willful. But to follow what will? To follow the will of nature, or to follow that of self? To follow the collective commonality or individual's personality? If you want to become a cat, then you must catch mice when you see them, otherwise you will not be a cat. If you want to become an immortal, then you must follow the immortal nature strictly, or you cannot become one. A cat is not a cat if it is compassionate when it sees a mouse. An immortal is no longer an immortal if his or her heart moans and laments when he or she sees marriages and funerals or weeping and crying in the mortal world. In order to become a Buddha, one needs to perceive nature, but must not follow one's nature and be willful. If you want to go to heaven, then you also need to perceive nature, but you must not follow human nature and be obsessed with the debauchery of mortal life and the passing clouds in the physical world.